And so the LaunchBox, being part of that initiative, is also known as an innovation hub, is there to assist entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses by connecting them to university resources, which includes IP and legal support, and collaborating with already established organizations that we have in our community, such as economic development, the Small Business Development Center, the Chamber of Commerce, of course, and SCORE. And there are others. And so this collaboration really creates a very valuable network of resources in our area for those entrepreneurs and small business who are looking for assistance. So now I would like to introduce our panelists. And we have three panelists for this discussion, very esteemed local bankers. We have Tim Henry. Tim is president and CEO at F&M Trust. We have Jeff Gaiman, and Jeff is the executive VP and market president at Orstown Bank. And we have Brad Warner. Brad is CEO at Patriot Federal Credit Union. So thank you all three for agreeing to be part of this panel discussion today. I think we're going to have a very valuable session. And as Leighton said, toward the end of the hour, we'll open it up for some discussion and comments. So I'm going to start us off. Tim, the first question will be directed at you, and that is, what are the current issues facing small business?
So, thank you, Helen. And everybody's now learned that Helen exaggerates the truth because I've never been esteemed in my life, but you know, I'll take it if I can get it. We're going to run this. Yeah, I'll start off, but Jeff and Brad will jump in on all these questions. Everybody will probably participate in this. As I see it, and I'm looking short term for small businesses or large businesses, just operating in a COVID world is obvious issue. In March, I know at the bank we figured out we got 3 months of dealing with this, and here it is October, and we really can't say when this is going to end. And along with that comes all the assorted issues of keeping employees safe, customers safe. But I think perhaps the most important issue, if you're looking long-term, is trying to figure out what's going to stick and become a permanent change for us and what is momentary. And momentary might be a year, but 3 years from now, what's the effects of on our society, on our customers of COVID, and how we look at the world? And will we forever be doing elbow bumps, or will there be hugs? And you can go on from there. Just operating in a digital world, I'm not saying anything new here. We've been in a digital world for a long time, but not everybody has gravitated to it. And yet, you know, I know for the bank, our mobile banking and online, which we have had for a number of years, the usage has just accelerated. And so, you know, COVID has driven people to this, and I'm doubting they're going to back away from it. And so for all our businesses, how we use digital for procuring inventories, for managing the manufacturing process, whatever you're doing, to selling and delivery. It's affecting everything. And for us to be able to glom onto this and stay up to speed is a huge challenge for us. And the third one, and I'll stop at this, is employees. You know, if you're running a business and you have employees, it has become a bigger challenge to get the right employees, to have employees that are focused in on your business and dedicated to it. There's a lot of things pulling us apart right now. And typically businesses you have people come together for a certain cause, but you're competing with a lot of self-interest, family interest, not necessarily bad, but heck, you're competing with the government that for a while there were paying employees better than maybe the employer could afford to pay them. So I'll limit it to that. We could go on forever. If you're running a small business, the challenges are endless, but I'll pick those three as the top ones right now.
Thank you, Tim. Jeff.
Yeah, no, I laughed in the middle of Tim's remarks. I thought of the difficulties of being in a small business. I certainly am. I work for one myself, and I'm working from home, and we're trying to keep our employees home and away from buildings if we can. My son remotely printed into this office and ran in here to grab things off for school. So just the unusual atmosphere of being at home and the challenges that posed to businesses. It is very difficult for many just to be able to focus appropriately when they've got children that they're educating at home, and being remote and dealing with the challenges of communicating in an appropriate fashion and connecting. But just to take it back to, where it's really at, there are just two distinct outcomes right now. And, with the change, the distinct sudden change in the way the operating environment is working, some businesses are very much booming. But unfortunately, disproportionately, small businesses are in much greater extent hurting. Technology has allowed the biggest of businesses to really expand radically and to solidify their sales. And not that small businesses don't have access to technology or unsophisticated, but that requires heavy capital investments and is difficult. So, they're at a material disadvantage. The issues facing, there's a lack of visibility out there. There's a lack of visibility from, we're tracking this thing to a virus, and how quickly will this virus fade, or will there be therapeutics, or will there be a vaccine to allow us to operate more quickly? It's really hard to build a business case around not knowing when your restaurant or your retail store can be fully open and operational. And so clearly, that's huge and key to the troubles that are out there. I think, in fairness to small businesses, and these other guys may feel different, but most small businesses are maybe lucky if they've got 15 days worth of liquidity. We're now 6 months plus into this thing, so liquidity being drained. I think that that is absolutely something that many of our clients are dealing with, of not having any liquidity left. And I'll be quiet here and not talk too much, but the employee issue of not having access to employees. We've got 7.9% unemployment rate, but yet I can't find employees that I desperately want. I need to hire a bunch of them, and I talk to many of our tradespeople, and they can't find the qualified people that exist out there.
Thank you, Jeff. And last but not least, Brad.
Good morning. The two issues that I would add to this is the talking about working from home. We have about roughly 200 employees. We sent 45 to 48 working from home, and we weren't prepared for the culture shock. We spent years breaking down the silos inside our businesses, and I assume that your businesses are acting the same in terms of small businesses breaking from silos from sales to production and vice versa. When you're starting working from home, you're actually working in a vacuum and you're not hearing as many voices. I think you saw that JP Morgan called their trading floor folks back to work because the decisions that were being made individually weren't getting the value of hearing the team members' conversations. I think our businesses going forward are going to have to figure out how working from home ends up becoming a long-term feature and benefit, because clearly you can cross time zones, you can offer additional supplies in terms of having people located in areas that you wouldn't normally have. But the actual communications, I spoke to an attorney about a month ago, and he told me it took them 5 years to build the culture to be able to have folks work from home and understanding. I think the biggest thing I had was an individual that see them every day, so their body language I get, but their language was, it's not a ton of complaints. It's not a ton of this. It's like, what is a ton? 2,000's a lot. So you get to a point where we have a long way to go on corporate culture. And I think that goes all the way down to the small businesses. Finally, the digital marketing conversation. Marketing is cheaper. To put up a website, a little bit of creativity, you actually have a new storefront. That, I believe, is something that we're going to see a little more of. Unfortunately, at the time when everyone else needed the digital marketing to be set up and the websites to clean up, there was no talent to find because everybody was reaching for it at the same time. Tim's conversation, taking a look at a 3-year approach, I think is the appropriate one. How do you get those business benefits in line, put into your project management, and put it in place quick enough in order to develop the efficiencies that are going to allow you to survive? I think most business leaders at this point in time really have to sit back and take a look at where they want to be a year, 2, 3 years downstream and start making actions today to actually make that happen.
Brad, thank you very much. So moving into the next question, I'm sure many of us have read the articles over the summer and continuing regarding whether or not it's a good time to start a business. Is it a good time? What new opportunities are there for people? Or are you crazy to even think about it at this point? We've heard the one where the young entrepreneur goes into the bank and says, how do I start a small business? And the banker responds with, well, start a big one and wait 6 months, which is very appropriate for this particular point in time.
I shouldn't laugh. That is terrible.
Oh, go on. So this second question, I think, is really crucial. Is this a good time to start a business? And what are the advantages and disadvantages? And Brad, do you want to start us off on this one?
Yes. First, let's be real in that when you start a business, 90% of those businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years. That's just a fact of life in good times. You add the pandemic on top of a global recession, there's certainly obstacles that any business person is going to have to step around, and you're going to have to be a talented business person and passionate about what you're doing to succeed. But take a look at the geography. Look at where we are in Franklin County. I believe I heard Jeff talk about a 7.9% unemployment rate. That's phenomenal when we consider that we had 20-some million people laid off. Franklin County is really doing well. If you look at our population growth, we're the second highest population growth of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, which tells you that as we gain population, there are going to be needs for goods and services. And so the timing in terms of producing them is going to become important. Look at the growing diversity. When I started back here in Franklin County in 15, 16, 92% of the adult workforce was white. Today, it's 89%, and it's changing rapidly. If you take a look at the school district in Chambersburg, you're seeing almost 40% minority. That community is going to change and going to grow and have new needs. If we're smart and we integrate those minorities into our community, the business opportunities that are going to be created are just phenomenal. I think that's an area that we need to keep focused on. If you take a look at saving rates, I don't know about the rest of the bankers in this room, but I assume they saw the same thing we did. We expected $56 million in growth this year, and we're sitting with $97 million in growth today. And if I take a look at the average checking account, it's $500-600 higher. The money markets are $2,000 higher. All that saying that the people that sat at home during COVID, they banked an awful lot of cash. They're sitting on a lot of disposable income, and that's going to break loose sooner or later. When we take a look at the unemployment stands, we see that the employment opportunities in Franklin County are strong. Auto sales last month were 16.3 million And when you take a look at the highest, we were at 17.4 million, the end of 18-19, that tells you that the auto market remains strong. Year over year, auto sales are up. Auto values, home values are holding their values, which is a good thing for the assets. Housing startups are strong. If you take a look at household formations, those numbers of folks that are moving out for first-time home setup, for the number of folks, we get 15% of the workforce is coming in from outside the county, which tells you there's a lot of work in Franklin County. Interest rates are low. Money's cheap at this time. If you take a look at what COVID did to the acceleration of the e-commerce along the I-81 corridor, you realize that the work just trying to get onto 81 with the traffic, you'll understand there's a lot of business in e-commerce going on. That actual transmission line in terms of where goods and services come from, 81 goes to Tennessee, goes all the way up to Canada, with stopping points in Washington, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York. So this is a great area to be. The I-81 corridor is the second highest traveled highway in the United States behind I-95, and there is growth in that. Assuming that the vaccine for COVID will occur by the end of the year or early next year, we're looking at a 2021 year of GDP estimated at 3%. So my conversation, if you're a savvy business person with a great idea, it's a pretty good time to start your business.
Thank you, Brad. Some great comments there. Tim?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Brad said there, and the power of demographics of having those stats and understanding them can give you an awful lot of confidence going forward. Money's cheap, as Brad mentioned, and it probably stays that way for a long time because for the world as a whole, there's very few places to invest this money other than the United States. Europe is getting, population-wise, is getting smaller. Even China is getting smaller than what it was before. And I think Brad lays out a lot of good reasons why you can have trust that over the longer term, we may be having bumps right now, but over the long term, Franklin County is a great place to be and a great place to be starting up a business. On a more practical side, for a lot of the businesses that have been around for a while, they're having to rethink how they do things. They got to rethink their culture. You know, Brad talked earlier about the challenge of employees working from home that, you know, probably Patriot and Orangetown and F&M didn't have to deal with a couple of years ago. Starting fresh today, you don't have the old paradigms you got to fight with. You can create your new ones, and I think it frees up the mind to take advantage of the opportunities that for a lot of the older companies, we got to get over the first hump of just understanding the brave new world that we're in, let alone how we're going to attack that one. So I also tend to think this is a very good time. There are those that, you know, and there's challenges in the economy. Jokingly, I said to the folks here yesterday when we were talking about this, I'd rather start a company when things are rough because I know which way things are going to go than if you start at the peak and you come down. Before coming here, I started a bank in 2007, which a lot of people thought that was a rotten time to start a company. You remember 07, 8, 9, 10. But in actuality, we rode that up. We didn't write it down. If we had started in 2004, 2005, it might have been much more difficult. So again, I follow along. It's a good time to get started.
Great, thank you, Tim. And Jeff?
I think a lot of great points made there. And in fact, I love the contrarian points that Tim laid out at the end. You know, I feel much better investing personally, really when the world has sold something off and as things are tough, because you really are building from a solid base to be able to build up from. So in a lot of ways, things coming apart, starting a business now, you know, really does have some benefits. You've seen some of the bigger trends play out. You understand them. You can build your business from day one on the back of those trends. The excesses are out of the market, and now you're going to begin to build and have a lot of constructive years ahead of you. But I also want to be practical too, that starting a business in a down market is inherently more difficult from a formation standpoint than it would be in a long bull cycle. That's not a bad thing. It's more difficult, but that's not a bad thing. It just means that you're going to want to have a more disciplined plan pulled together and thought about your risk factors probably in a little tighter fashion. Be tied into exactly what it is your company is doing and how it's expanding. So those are all positives, even though that it certainly is a difficulty. But I can't say enough of seeing the major trends, and certainly technology being built even more into your business. Restaurants understanding that, right? I mean, we all go to restaurants that we love, and they have adapted, and 39% nationally of all restaurant trade is takeout business, right? So have sort of these awkward takeout sections. They're going to be better. New ones are going to build that right into their business, and and they know long term that that's going to be part of it. Even the national chains and Starbucks are adding more drive-throughs and the like. So, less human interaction, more takeout, more technology enabled. You're right about the shopping online, and warehousing is booming and trucking is booming because people are having it delivered to their home. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot of good stuff, but clearly, I'll leave it with that risk tolerance broadly is probably lower, just because, we've been through a difficult time. So I think it's, important to be honest about that point.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, if somebody could figure out how to put a good use to all those extra cardboard boxes we have these days from home deliveries, they'd be onto something. Maybe we can help someone with that, huh? So the next question, and Jeff, I'm going to have you start us off on this one, is, are banks lending? And if so, what business sectors are you lending to during the pandemic?
Yeah, great question, and maybe at the heart of what this is all about. But we and these other two gentlemen and other banks are absolutely lending. And I'll go back to a point that we made just a moment ago, that there's really more clarity now in making loans than there was before, because you've seen those big trends play out. So you have a better view of what's going to work and not work in the new world. So in a lot of ways, that helps tremendously. A big piece of what I think all of us did here this year was to play a big role in the PPP program. Many of us, we did several years worth of loans in a matter of like 60 days, and really changed everyone's job role inside the entire company to try and fulfill that. That's the beauty that all of us, the three people on this panel, have in working for a small company, that we can adapt and change in a way that larger, more complex organizations either won't or can't. And I think when the people that are on this Zoom call think about their own businesses, they too are small and can adapt and audible really quickly. But just to even give you the behind the scenes of why banks want to be lending and why it's important, banks are going through a difficult period in a lot of ways right now. And there are really two drivers that is taking place. One, that low rate environment that I think Brad talked about has shrunk the margins for banks, the difference between what we get paid on loans we put out and deposits that we bring in. That's a significant amount of our revenue. So our revenues are negatively impacted because of that low rate shrinking net interest margin. And the other side that banks are hurting from is in a period like this, we provision more, anticipating that loans will go bad. And that puts strain and pressure on our earnings stream. So that's our tough lot in life. But what does that say? That puts us in a position of wanting to find ways to do business, of wanting to grow our loan book and to be out there and find other good assets. We may not make as much on each loan, but that means that we really do need to be out and doing more loans. So we find ourselves really vigorously competing to try and bring those things into the organization. So I think that perspective might help borrowers to understand where we find ourselves and why we're making the decisions, quite honestly, that we're making. You know, but it is looking for the types of businesses that are doing really well. And I'll rattle through a few, and certainly I will miss some. But in this low rate environment and with a market that has absolutely no residential home inventory out there, home sales are doing amazing. Home building is doing amazing. We're sitting in our houses, maybe working from home. We're just temporarily here, and we're looking at the things that we don't like. So home improvement businesses are doing phenomenal. If you're in the trades, if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber, if you're a mason, if you're a landscaper, you know, those businesses are just exploding and doing phenomenal. So it's been exciting to see for them. Residential development. We talked about the warehousing, and a lot of that is outside this area money, but some is local money. Trucking is doing phenomenal. Even restaurants that have been able to pivot and do takeout business, some of them are doing phenomenally well. The order sizes are up. The efficiency and their cost structure is even better because there's less people involved and more efficient. So in a lot of ways, a lot of things are doing, you know, really well. But then I'll pivot towards the troubled part. You know, those borrowers that are in difficult situations that maybe need help and rehabilitated. And I think all of us too are working with them, but there's hope. I can't stress enough them leaning on partners, leaning on their CPA, their attorney, working with their banker to maybe really critically look at how they're focused. You know, looking at their cost structure, looking at what products they're selling, looking at the margins they're making, or even the employees, the number or the talent, and really going through that very, very critically. We've seen several of our clients take huge losses and turn them into very profitable opportunities by looking inward, being incredibly critical, and kind of rehabilitating themselves. So, you know, sort of the other side, I told you what's great, and not everyone finds themselves there, but if you're in the tough part of the world, you can also do a lot of things to help yourself and have us be able to help you by that inward reflection. I'll stop there.
Excellent, thank you, Jeff. Brad.
I would add the supply chain disruption. I agree with Jeff's conversations on what we're seeing today. The kinds of loan conversations we're having that are a few months out that will come to fruition are folks that are looking at filling supply chain needs for larger companies that have been broken. We're seeing more manufacturing companies and smaller companies coming in and looking at how can they meet some specific business need, and how they're teaming up and having conversations with those individuals, and then working through a process of how we're going to be ready to serve them when the time comes. So we're seeing a lot more unique kind of opportunities that wouldn't normally have been here because of the supply chain or lack thereof, the supply chain disruption. That's actually creating opportunities, and folks that are having businesses that have had trouble, that are beginning to look at how do they rebuild their revenue streams, are having those conversations with other companies. What can we do for you? What are you missing? How do we do it? We've seen it with the folks that have turned around to make ventilators or masks and things like that. The American spirit is alive and well, and the free enterprise system is working. And it's interesting to watch good business leaders pivot and make these kinds of decisions. And I'm excited about what we can do to help that.
Excellent, some excellent points there. And Tim.
Yep. So I won't repeat what's already been said, but I find it interesting. COVID's accelerated a lot of things. We talked about digital earlier and how it's accelerated. The need for the trades has also been accelerated. If you have a broken toilet at home, good luck finding somebody who can come out and fix it right now. If you want a roof redone, maybe March. So hopefully you'll get through the winter okay. You know, we've talked particularly with the younger people about the trades. We've had trade schools pop up, disappear, pop up again. But, you know, if I look at, I've got sitting in front of me a sheet with the 12 best sectors, if you will, within the country as far as, and they rated this by number of closures per 1,000 businesses. So believe it or not, the lawyers are doing well. Maybe they always do well. The architects are doing real well. The accountants are doing well. But then you get into, you know, the remaining 9, body shops, contractors, HVAC, plumbing, auto repair, roofing. We need the trades in a big way. And, you know, maybe this will, again, like so many other things, really bring the focal point to this. And we become really supportive of the trades and the training for those trades and recognize the value that they bring. Because to fix that toilet, it's going to cost you a whole lot more money than what it might have 5 years ago. The other thing I'll just mention, the banks are lending. You've got, and credit union, you're looking at 3 organizations that are very community minded. Our lifeblood, which I think was kind of what Jeff was saying, our lifeblood comes from the community doing well. And I think as a community, Franklin County is fortunate that you have banks and credit unions that are actually in pretty good financial shape right now. We can afford to stretch to make those loans, put that capital back in to help. You know, we're doing well as Franklin County, but there's probably areas that need to recover, and you have community lenders interested in supporting the community.
Excellent, thank you, Tim. Next question, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it moving. What does it take for banks to issue loans to small businesses? And Brad, if you would like to start us off on this one.
I'm going to make the assumption that we're not really talking about businesses with 3+ years of track records and good financials. Those individuals rarely have problems getting bank lending and get a bank to be interested in them. So I'll focus primarily on those businesses that are purchasing existing businesses, opening new lines of businesses, or starting a new businesses. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to leave the actual type of the financing structures of SBA, Federal Home Loan Bank, the special financing to both Jeff and Tim. They're out in the streets more than I am, and they have a much better feel for that. I sit primarily in Senior Lending Committee and deal with packages that come to me. So I'm going to go to the basics of what I'm looking for when I look at a loan package. And there are 5 things. If your business plan includes these 5 things and answers them well, you'll likely get a favorable action from Patriot. I'm looking for a value proposition. I'm looking for how much, how used, how long, and how paid. And those 5 things are the checklist that I look for. What is your value proposition? Clearly, to take it to a personal level, if I've got $100 in my checking account every single month, I don't have the minimum balance to meet it, and I'm going to pay a $6 or $10 monthly service charge. So if you offer me free checking, that's a value proposition for me. At $6 a month, $72 a year, that's my value. If I got $20,000 in my checking account, free checking doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I need either interest checking or some other service that you're going to offer. If you are running a business, what's your value proposition to your customer? Do you understand what it is? Who is your niche? Who you're going to serve? And how are you going to do that? If you can't clearly express that in a written format, I don't believe you know your business. I think we all know that we have thoughts in our heads, but if we can't put it into words, we don't know it. So the business plan to me starts with a value proposition. How much, how used, how long, and how paid. Historically, you heard people talk about the 5 C's of lending. I like to make it easy, just plain old English. How much? If you need $100,000 to get started, and we get 3 months into the project and you need another $100,000, you didn't plan that business plan out well. I need to know that the amount that you're asking for up front is going to get the business up and running. So that piece is first. How used? If you're going to be taking a business and starting and you've got 45 days of your net interest or net terms in terms of your accounts receivables coming in, you're going to need money to pay your staff at the same time, payroll. If you're not letting us understand how you're using those funds all the way to the end, we can't understand your business plan. So how you're using your money is important. How long? If you want a piece of equipment for $100,000 and it has a 3-year useful life, and you want to take it out for 5 or 7 years, we know in 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to have a problem because your equipment's not going to be there and you're still paying a loan. So matching the loan to the length of the asset that you're purchasing is important to me. No one buys a 30-year mortgage and puts it on a credit card. So we have to understand that there's a time framework with money, and that you as a business understand the assets that you're bringing on board and appropriately financing this, and how paid the last one. You need to know your income streams and need to have confidence that those income streams for us are realistic and they're not pie in the sky. In the end, if you look at your cash flow, we want to know that after depreciation or before depreciation, so to speak, that your cash is going to cover at least 120% of your monthly payment. Your debt coverage ratio has to be at least 1.2% of your payment. If it's not, everyone's going to have a tough month from time to time. Either we get into a situation where lead salesperson is out sick or something like that, and sales drop off. If you don't have a cushion of some sort, we're not looking to go that tight. So from our perspective, if you can give me a value proposition, tell me how you're going, or how much money you need, how you're going to use it, how long it's going to be used, and how it's going to pay, I'm ready to jump into that plan.
Thank you, Brad. Very detailed response to that one. Much appreciated. Tim.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat what Brad just said, but I will say is you're coming into a lender being extremely open with the person and being quite willing to talk about the goods and the bads is critical. Trying to just put out the goods and not demonstrate that you also understand the risk and you understand how you're going to mitigate those risks, because every plan, you know, there's the good parts of it and there's the risky parts of it. That's part of business. That's part of investing capital. I think being able to demonstrate to your lender that you understand the full scope of it, not just the sunny side, and that for those riskier parts of the plan that you have a mitigant, you know, the what ifs, how you answer those what ifs becomes important to gaining the trust of your lender. And I'll leave it there, Helen, just for time's sake.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. And Jeff.
Yeah, I think these gentlemen handled this one really well. I'd add a few, stand by your investment. And, you know, I think that this is critical, and sometimes people get on different sides of this. But if you're coming to me and you're asking for $20,000 or 100 or 10 million, you know, and you're asking for me to believe in your plan, you standing next to it, especially in a new business, you guaranteeing alongside of me, means everything in the world. If you're not willing to be in the deal along with me, that tells me that you view that there's a lot of risk that I don't see. And if you're willing to be in the deal with me and stand by your investment, then I have a tremendous amount more comfortable, right? We're banks. I'm only making 4 or 5%. I'm not a venture capital firm that can make upside and, you know, make unlimited returns on the thing. So that means I need to be pretty good in my decision making. Can't have too many that go down with it. So your belief in it means a lot. In today's place and time, liquidity, thinking about probably having more liquidity than than you may have pondered 9 or 12 months ago is pretty key. It's a new business. The ramp up probably will take longer. Your unexpected expenses will probably be greater. And that's okay. Liquidity can cure a lot of sins. And if you don't have it, you've got to be without error. And I think that it's just good to understand more liquidity is probably good to come in with. But to go back, have a realistic roadmap and a plan. Be really dialed into it. Look at yourself and your business critically. Ask yourself those questions. What is the weak part of my business? What competitors can come in here and take this from me? What are my weaknesses? I like you a lot more when you are willing to put all those weaknesses on the table. It's not weak to tell me your weaknesses. It's strength to be able to tell me your weaknesses and tell me what those mitigants are to be able to deal with them. But there are places for some gap funders and other enhancements here, the 504, SB 504 or 7As, or even stuff like FCADC and other gap funders that can come and close the loop on some deals right now, probably even more than at normal time.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. The final question that we have for today is quite simply, what else would you like small business owners to know? So from your banker perspective, what should they be aware of? And Tim, if you would like to start us off on this one, please.
Sure. And this question, I don't know everybody who's watching, listening in here. And so I don't want to be presumptive because this stuff maybe you do know, but Jeff must have been looking at my notes because I had find capital wherever you can. Jeff talked about liquidity, I'll talk about his capital, but wherever you can find it, that's the cushion that will get you through the bumps. And we started up that business in 2007, and all of a sudden I had red ink all over the place. And we had to find ways to get ourselves through that. Some of the ways we got through were more fun than others. But small business, any business, I don't care, GM's had its problems. Having capital, having that liquidity, I can't underscore that enough. And you want to keep looking for opportunities to get that capital. Again, not to be presumptive, if you're starting a business, there's just no shortcuts to the work. I know for ourselves, we'd finish up at 11:30, 12 at night, and then we'd race to be first ones there at 4 in the morning, and did that for 2 years before it's kind of settled into a pattern that we didn't have to do that. I just have not figured out another way around that. It just, what you're undertaking takes time and effort that most people aren't willing to do. They'll work the 9 to 5, they'll get paid the W-2, and that's what they want out of life, which there's nothing wrong with it. But boy, if you want to run a business and you want to be in charge of it and own it, there's just no way around it. And the last thing I'll lead with, and again, I'm hitting all the soft stuff here, but the power of optimism. My experience has been, if you can keep yourself optimistic, even when talked about toilets, I'll say when the crap's flowing the wrong way, optimism gets you through to the next step. And your employees are looking for you. If you're looking down and beat up over things, they're figuring game's over, and they're going to start looking for other places to go. But optimism allows you to see the opportunities and keeps you outward focused. And it's just, Helen gave me the chance to throw out what I wanted to here. And I share that only because I know it's helped me much of my life and much of my business life.
Excellent point. And that's a decision that you make. That's within your control.
Correct.
Right.
I'm in control of that one.
Excellent point. Jeff.
Well, I will compliment Tim. Those aren't soft ones. Those are just very real, and I admire it. I think maybe everyone on this call, if we're reflective, I have succeeded in a lot of ways in my life by being able to keep a cool hand and look for the opportunity out in front of me when the world is getting difficult. And many of those to my left and right get nervous, to be able to keep myself composed and look optimistically towards the future that exists out there. I think I'm so on the same page. A few other things that I'd share. In a world that is maybe more unclear than ever, reaching out, communicating, and talking to peers. The chance. I mean, honestly, we may be on this panel for other people, but for me to hear from Brad and Tim and hear their thoughts, I think it's more important for me to do that now. I think all of my business clients, I would encourage them to do the same. Talk to people in other industries, just that connection, because clarity does not exist. What is happening in Franklin County right now? I don't think you can read it in a paper. I really do think it happens only in forums like this. And I just feel that more keenly now. Have partnerships that are more rock solid than you've ever considered them. I hope you have a CPA that you really think the world of, that you can bounce ideas off of, that can be critical of you, and that you can ask for perspective, right? You specialize in something, they specialize in something very different. Your attorney, that partnership, and your banker. If you've got a banker that, you've got a good, solid relationship and can have a conversation, that has incredible value, unbelievable value. Think about the big macro themes and how that can play for you. Think about how technology can be woven into your business from day one if you're a new business, or existing of how you need to weave it into your business. If you're a restaurant, yes, it's insane. It's completely insane. But go with that audibling and adding in the takeout business and build that permanently into your model, because it sure looks like it's going to be here for the long term. So you could take a negative and just recognize what those change situation is, and then just build it in going into the future.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And Brad, I'll open it up to you. I do want to have a few minutes at the end so that we can unmute folks and have some discussion. So
I'll try to make it quick.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
Two issues that I see when we talk about capital and liquidity and we talk about accountants, they're linked. Metrics are always linked. If I'm trying to sell like Walmart and I'm low prices, but I'm offering the top services like Macy's, it's my accountant or my internal bookkeeper that's going to look at me and tell me my pricing strategies aren't working and I need to make some changes there. Having metrics and understand it. We've all seen businesses take off, have all kind of orders. They come in, they need capital, they need this. And the reality is they're giving the business away for free and they're going downhill very quickly because they don't know how to price their product. So having those folks around you to get metrics is important early. Also, if you're running a business and it's starting to slow down, make certain you take a look at your single points of failures. Do you have one supplier? Do you have one customer? Do you have a specific employee that everything falls on their shoulders? You may not be able to address them today, but you should always be working to get away of the risk of having a single point of failure, because that's going to give you the ability to mitigate problems down the road. And it's never a bad time to start thinking about what might happen. So if you're running a business today, stay on your toes, look at your metrics, and take a look at where your risks might be coming.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Leighton, if you want to unmute folks, I think this would be a great time. I think we've had, I feel like we've had like a fire hose amount of information in a very short time, very valuable information. But I would like to invite people to comment and ask questions now while we have these panelists with us.
Helen, this is Mike Ross. I don't have any question right now. I would just want to compliment Jeff, Tim, and Brad. This is one of the best discussions I've heard, period. This was as well done as it could have been. So Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mike.
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Georgina, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Georgina.
Hi, Helen. I have to agree with Mike. You know, in my new role as a business consultant for the Small Business Development Center, I'm glad this is being recorded. I want to memorize what you guys said because it was really great. It was really great. I talked to a lot of people, and God bless them. There's still a lot of optimism out there. There's still a lot of people who are looking to start a business, but they don't really know what they don't know. And so this was really great. Thank you guys so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll jump in here as well. Not a question, but I think, yeah, just saying thank you to the panelists and everyone. I think me, myself, my name is Billy. I work at the Copper Cutter restaurant as of January this year. I'm from Carlisle, but I just moved back not too long ago. But getting acquainted with Franklin County and, again, hearing what you all have said, again, you can't read it necessarily somewhere. You know, you hear things and see things, but, you know, there's still a part of you that's like, you don't really know if it's 100% true. But even just, you know, reading, like, there was this report that came out from the borough. It was a 2019 report that came out April 2020 that I found in my mail. I'm like, okay, this should be interesting, you know. So I'm sure the pandemic wasn't written into that, but even hearing what was said today, there's definitely a lot to get excited about as far as Franklin County goes and like the growth. So, you know, if people are, you know, if there's people like this in our community that are thinking dynamically and positively, I mean, I'm considering myself a positive person. I think that can only lead to good things. So if you can get through something like this, then, you know, it's, you know, something to look forward to. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Billy. Great comments.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? We've got like 3 or 4 minutes left.
I do. I'm Diana. I work with Wilson College in development, and I also serve on the Downtown Chambersburg Economic Vitality Committee. We've been kicking around a 5-year plan recently, and one of the things that came up for discussion was crowdfunding, crowdsourcing for small business loans, working with alternate avenues of lending. And I just would be interested in hearing from our lenders, what are the downsides of this if we recommend this to our small businesses in downtown Chambersburg?
So I'll throw out, and hopefully Brad or Jeff can give something better. One of the things you learn too is don't comment on stuff you don't really know much about. You know, when you started your question, I was tying into my comment of grab capital where you can. And certainly you hear about the successes in crowdfunding and the opportunities to get capital. And yes, you're going to be paying that back one way or another. But I'll leave my comments there because quite frankly, I'm not heavily involved in that and don't know enough to be able to tell you.
You know, and I don't know that I've got great wisdom here, but I'll share something. And I think the way most of them work, I believe, is that they don't wind up holding. There's not an equity hold in the business. Really, they're just vehicles towards contributing funds. So they could be. I haven't experienced any businesses doing crowdfunding in that fashion. I know that someone came to me asking for a sizable donation for a police officer that unfortunately died of cancer, and it was for his family to help out. And I said, look, I don't think this is a place maybe for me individually to be able to help, but if you did a social-oriented crowdfunding campaign, I think, you know, we can get you a lot further. And they wound up, I think, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars in a very short period of time. So, I mean, it can be unbelievably powerful. I'm proud that I sort of point them in that direction. I don't know as a business funding vehicle, but if you're not giving up equity in the company, you know, maybe it's good. Getting equity in a company is good, but you want to be careful that those voices alongside of you are voices that they have power and control that you feel good about.
Diane, what I would add on that is that when I look at business opportunities and items, I take a look at risk. And I take typically a 7 risk profile: credit risk, transaction risk, reputation risk, strategic risk. And when I take a look at these, the 2 risks that pop up in my mind are transaction risks and reputation risk. Now, be careful in how you present yourself and make certain that you are honest and straightforward, because that crowdsourced funding, if you don't follow what you've asked for, can come back and create reputation risks for your business that are very difficult to overcome. And understand the transaction that you're getting into, and understand if there are any strings tied to it. So my approach from your perspective is to actually write down the risk profile, do your risk assessments, and focus in on those 2 areas, and make certain that when you enter into those kinds of transactions, you understand those specific risks, and if there are mitigating strategies, that you put them together ahead of time before you enter into it.
Thank you all.
Good question, Diana. Thanks for being here today. Before we end, I would like to make everybody aware, if you're not already, that Global Entrepreneurship Week is happening November 16 through 22. My understanding is there's going to be a lot of global activity around startups. Here locally, we'll have another LaunchBox and Chamber Lunch and Learn event on the 17th of November, focusing on what you need to be paying attention to as you're getting your business started. Obviously, this is one of the components, but there's others. And then the Mont Alto Fall Forum event is happening that week. That'll be on the 19th, and that's where we bring in Penn State students who have startups to hear what they went through as they were getting their businesses established. What were the challenges? What were the successes that they had? So I think some more very valuable sessions coming up in the near future.
And I'd just like to say a quick thank you to Helen and the Penn State Mont Alto LaunchBox for taking the time to organize this. And Jeff, Tim, Brad, you guys were amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. I loved, basically like everyone said, this was the most helpful information I have heard on this topic. And I love the turn we took about optimism. That was so great. You guys, I wrote in my notes, optimistic composure. I love it. Thank you. But
practical financing information and some wisdom thrown in.
Life wisdom, absolutely. You guys crushed it. And like Georgina said, if you want to memorize this, or if you just missed something and couldn't write notes fast enough because it was that great, the recording will be, I'll put it up on our website at chambersburg.org, most likely on our Learning from Business Leaders page.
Okay.
And then I will also go ahead and send the link to everyone who registered in an email, so you can access it that way. Yes, I think that is just about everything. Thank you so much for taking time out of your days to join us today. It was, like I said, too good.
Thank you very much, Leighton, and good luck to you later this week.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.